Well, welcome everyone. I am Sarah Hine. I'm the transfer coordinator here at Prairie State College, which means I am a free resource to you for questions you have about transferring on and going on for your bachelor's degree. Today we're together on a special topic, and specifically we're going to be hearing from Prairie State alumni Mina Rashid. She is a 2015 associate's graduate from Prairie State. 2017, she graduated with her bachelor's of social work at Governor's State. And this year, you graduated with your master's also in social work from the University of Chicago. This is a path I often have students wonder about and ask me about, is how do I get from here to highly selective universities, highly competitive majors or programs, grad school, highly competitive scholarships. So Mina is a real life example of a Prairie State student who is willing, thank you so much for coming back. She's been willing to come and talk about the steps that she took to make those things happen. And then we'll also talk about how we can translate that into current resources here on campus and planning for yourself in the future to help make that happen for yourselves. So Mina, thank you for coming in.
Thank you all for having me here. Oh, you're gonna run the, okay, good. Again, like she said, I am an alum from Prairie State, and I've been in school for approximately 7 years straight, and that'll take us to our next slide. And so this is just an outline of kind of like all of the graduation gowns I've had and all of the cords I've collected and my collection of degrees, which I'm very proud of. And so I want to start with a quote that I used a lot while I was on this academic journey, and that is, what we do not transform in ourselves, we transfer to the next generation. So whatever that is, beliefs about ourselves, our education backgrounds, whatever it is that we are not changing in ourselves, we're just passing it along to the next generation. So it's important for us to really think about what we'd like to change right now. So today I'm here, it's okay. Today I'm here as evidence that if you do transform your beliefs about what you can achieve in academics, you too can start near and go far, which is of course Prairie State's motto. Okay, and why does this matter to you? Well, it matters because you chose to educate yourself. You're seeking self-transformation. Obviously, you want to expand your view of life. You want to expand your knowledge and, of course, embark upon a career that you hopefully will love. You're leaders of the future generation, and I said age ain't nothing but a number because I anticipated that maybe some of my peers would be here from Generation X. And I think they are, in the form of one of my former professors, Dr. Koch. And you're investing time and money and resources and your energy. So it's important to utilize that and maximize it for the most impact. Next. And so why should you trust me? Because I started as a 41-year-old wife and mother of 4 kids. I spent 15 years in the mortgage industry, and of course the Great Depression caused that to go boom for a lot of people. I was successful in that career. However, regulations were changing and policies and laws, and it was just, a lot. And so what happened is that I was flying under the radar in the mortgage industry. Nobody knew that I was working and being a professional without a high school diploma. And so that was a big, big realization that I needed to address, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to transfer to a different career without having the covers snatched off of me. So what did I do? I took my GED right here at Prairie State. And so the belief of starting near and going far is really real to me. I then enrolled not long after, I think it was spring 2012. And when I finished here, I finished summa cum laude with a 3.92. I transferred to Governor State, and where I was also summa cum laude, 4.0. And then that allowed me to then transfer or go to apply to U Chicago, where it whittled my GPA down a bit, but that's because of the challenging curriculum, but I wasn't going to let it take me down. So those are some reasons why you can trust that I know what I'm talking about. Next. So today what I'm going to do is talk about some strategies that I used for my academic success, some of the extracurricular activities that I got involved in that really helped for my grad school application, and how I financed my education, and some of what my experiences were along my trajectory. Can anybody tell me what they think this number might represent?
What percent of people who enroll at Prairie State who graduate from here? Like within 5 years?
Kind of. What about you?
I was gonna say a grade, like what a grade left off with.
Anybody else want to take a stab at it before I reveal the answer? Okay, Sarah. The number of students enrolled in four-year colleges and university that began at two-year schools. So all of the students that are currently enrolled across the nation in 2019, this was the most recent study, 49% of them came from two-year colleges. And then the next one. What do you think this number might represent?
How many graduated?
Okay. What about you? Graduation? Okay, let's see what it says. Actually, the percentage of professional degree earners who originally began at two-year colleges. So graduate students who started at two-year colleges, I am of the 13%. Now, this number might seem small relative to the size of the nation, but according to the Council of Grad School, in 2017, there were about 525,000 graduate students enrolled in programs across the nation. So 13% of that would be roughly 68,000. So 68,000 people started at two-year programs. And I think that this number is probably increasing, given in the research that there are a lot of schools who are starting to change their minds about how they view students from two-year colleges transferring into their institution. So there are a lot of institutions who are now widening the access for people to apply to their programs. Next. So this is a quote that moves me, and also I was exposed to while here at Prairie State by Dr. Koch. Paul Lawrence Dunbar's "We Wear the Mask." So we wear the mask that grins and lies. It hides our cheeks and shades our eyes. And the next slide, it'll take me into why that means so much to me. It's because strategies for success involved me changing the way I believe things, changing how I view myself. Sometimes our history, or like my time in high school, may have sent some internal messages that I wasn't good enough. And while I was a good student, it just wasn't happening for me at that time for whatever environmental reasons. Sometimes that could be shifts in households, or it could be lack of resources that impact our ability to perform well in school. So one thing that I did have to embark upon, and I came into Prairie State really trying to prove myself. Now, there are some good things and bad things about that, because it can kind of, make you work hard for approval from others rather than working hard for self-approval. And so one thing I did transform was my belief about whether or not I can do this. And I've proven to myself that I can. One thing that I wanted to point out is that gen eds do matter. And had I not had this foundation, then I don't think that I would have been able to understand how important the gen eds were to my career path. anthropology, you know, and how we move through the world and how we work in groups or how we engage with each other and understanding different cultures. And Communications 101 helped me stand right here and to be able to have an organized presentation for you, or at least I hope you think that it's organized.
I was totally thinking, I'm like, when you verbally cited your source, I'm like, that's your Com 101 class.
Absolutely, right here at Prairie State. You would think astronomy has nothing to do with much, but I would argue that it does, just given how our planet operates and physics and that sort of thing. And of course, humanities and comparative religions, you know, to give you a wider expansion of your thought process with regard to different religions or what have you. So another thing is that I knew that public university was okay. You know, going to Governor State was no problem for me. In fact, I felt a little bit smarter about it because it's less expensive. And then I deeply explored my career. Do I really love this work? If I don't really love it, then maybe it's not for me. I also connected and developed relationships with faculty and staff. If I needed help, if I needed further explanation, office hours, visits, that sort of thing. One thing that I did not take advantage of while I was here was office visits because I was wearing the mask. I did not want to look like I needed help. I wanted to appear as if I got this. But the reality is that it's important for us to ask for help. It's also important to have these relationships because when you get ready to apply to graduate school, they might write you a recommendation, you know. I used all the support here, tutoring, TRIO, because I was a first-gen, I am a first-gen college student. And I wasn't accepting no as an answer, and I mean that in the sense that I wanted to highly decorate myself so that when it was time to apply to schools, that it would be hard for them to say no to me. I gave 100%, and I also stayed away from just enough thinking because a lot of my colleagues at Prairie State, at Governor State, all were like, did he ask for that on the syllabus? Why are we doing all of this extra stuff? Or just like, all I'm gonna do is just this in order to get the grade, I just wanna pass. I did away with that kind of thinking because I was thinking far out about what it is that I wanted for myself. I also got involved here on campus, Phi Theta Kappa, which also requires you to have a certain GPA. I sold Krispy Kremes. I was the president of a student organization at Governor State. Not only was I president, but I helped it get chartered. I took the reins and got the organization started, and it's an organization that supports and advocates and helps formerly incarcerated students who want to re-enter higher education, because we know that education is one of the biggest deterrents to recidivism for people returning back to jail. So I did workshops, training, lots of leadership activity. And at UChicago, I was also the co-leader of Justice Works, which is a similar sort of organization, and we put on events and activities and contributed to the intellectual life on campus. So my quote is, "The glow up is real." Next, can anybody figure out what this number might represent?
Like roughly the cost of grad school at Chicago. I know it's pretty expensive.
Yeah, roughly the cost. Kind of. Yep. Mm-hmm. Okay, Sarah. This is the amount of money that UChicago awarded me as a scholarship under their Dean's Distinguished Leadership Award. That came as a result of all of what we have just formally discussed. Giving 100%, making sure nobody can tell you no. This says we want you at this university. There are different levels of scholarships that UChicago offers students, and some are not this high for the 2-year program. Some people just get a little bit And there are some who get full rides. So those are all correct. It's, the other half is my dad. So go get the bag is what I say. You know, I had to apply for loans because I was unfortunately not eligible for like Pell and MAP grants because my husband's income impacted that. But I did seek out other alternatives, like my religious organization. They gave me $3,000 a year for 6 years. So 3 times 6, 18 grand. And then of course the U Chicago Scholarship. And I also researched. U Chicago has a large endowment, and I think it's like $7 billion with a B. And so 95% of the students at the School of Social Service Administration receive some sort of tuition support. While here at Prairie State, I started my own business. Since I left the mortgage business, I had to figure out a side hustle. And so what I did is started my own virtual admin business where I booked appointments for salon owners and estheticians using web-based software and my cell phone. So I could do that right there in the mall, or I can do that at home or wherever. So in the words of Remy Ma and Fat Joe, nothing can stop me. I'm all the way up. So some of my experiences at PSC, GSU, and U Chicago. Here and at GSU, I felt like home. I felt like I was home because the environments are diverse, they're inclusive. You have people from different walks of life, so socioeconomic statuses, which is what SES represents, gender, age, and so it felt good to be here and experience that, and then go over to Governor State and experience the very same thing. But when I got to U Chicago, has anybody heard of imposter syndrome? Yeah. And so imposter syndrome, for those of us who don't know, it kicked in for me because a PWI stands for predominantly white institution. And so I'm asking, like, do I deserve to be here? Am I just part of a, you know, plan to fulfill diversity requirements? And so I often, you know, lacked self-confidence, and I had doubts about my abilities, and I didn't feel good enough. But again, I had to commit to transforming what I believe and understand that if I don't belong here because of who I am and what I represent in this world as a middle-aged African-American woman who often has to work twice as hard to get, you know, half as far, I had to change the narrative, okay? And so some of the revelations, though, when I got to the School of Social Service Administration was that I had colleagues that had been homeschooled, who were veterans, who had started at two-year colleges too, who were formerly incarcerated. So I wasn't as isolated as I had thought that I actually was. And another little tidbit is that while here, I was in the honors program and I took a class with Dr. Koch. And we took a field trip to the University of Chicago, the library, and we looked at some original manuscripts of authors like Frank Wright, and we looked at journals. I think it was Ida B. Wells' journal, and you know, Frederick Douglass, writings by Frederick Douglass. So impactful for me, but even while standing on that campus, I did not have it in my purview, in my vision that I would ever be on that campus, not ever. So to say I'm saying all that to say that we are our ancestors' wildest dreams. No matter how our ancestors got here, they all had a vision for us to succeed. So with that said, education is the most powerful tool which you can use to change the world, and that is a quote by Nelson Mandela. And so today I have talked to you about some strategies that I used, how I financed my education, some of my extracurricular activities, and some of my experiences. And also I just want to remind you that I am here as a living example that you can do anything that you put your mind to, and that it's important to reframe what it is that you might believe about yourself, not being able to access private institutions or highly selective institutions. You actually can do it, and I'm living proof of that. And so I also want to let you know that you are the real MVPs. And here at Prairie State, because of all of the diversity and the that I just mentioned, I believe that we have a different resolve. I believe that our resilience is shaped differently. I believe that since we have elected to be here and to start at community college, that we are stronger and that we are more determined. And that's not to say anything about, the people who just go right out of high school into college, but I think that there is something to say about students who start at community college and push their way through. Another thing that I want to also add is that in the research, it also states that people who complete their associate's degree at two-year institutions are more likely to transfer and complete their bachelor's degrees. So again, you are the real MVPs. And I'd like to finish. I took the lyrics out of this, but I just want to play a little song for you. And the title of it is called Win, Win, Win. And I'm sure you all might be familiar with that. It's just the instrumental because the lyrics are too bad. Oh, if it doesn't play, it's okay.
It's showing on the screen differently.
Oh, I see it probably. But anyway, that is all I have for you today. And I appreciate you listening to me. And I also put my contact information up there if you are interested in staying connected.
Sorry, it's like now it's not even showing me anything on my screen.
Oh, it's okay. It's all right.
So to add to that, or to build on things that Amina talked about, and thank you again so much for sharing your experience. Prairie State, we have many distinguished alumni that have gone on to great things, doctorates, master's degrees at highly competitive schools. Just for one example, in pharmacy, that's actually a field. So the pharmacists at Walgreens, CVS, Target, you name the pharmacy, they have a doctorate in pharmacy. They typically make at least $100,000 right out of their doctorate, and you don't really have unemployment when you're in that field. Pharmacy is a unique program that you only need certain classes, and you need a lot of them and really great grades, but you don't need a bachelor's degree to get into a PharmD program. And Prairie State has a wonderful tradition of successful students that's happened. Professor Christine Brooms, one of our chemistry professors, has been really good at mentoring our pharmacy students, and she provided me recently a list of 30 Prairie State students that in the last 8 years that have gotten in or are already completed in the last 8 years with PharmD. We do have a special program with Midwestern University, so if anyone is a pharmacy major, definitely check out the information in the back. Building on, so Amina was talking about how universities are seeking out community college students more, and that is very true. Several decades ago, universities really had this mentality: we get you as a freshman, we keep you forever, we graduate you, and things kind of used to work that way, but that's just not the norm anymore. They have a word for it now. It's transfer swirling. We all kind of move around from school to school, and it's very uncommon now that you started at and graduated from the same university from your bachelor's. So ISU is just one example. The public universities actually share data. They report back to us. Community college students are their primary, Illinois community college students are their primary source of their transfer students, and 40% of the students at ISU's campus are transfer students, and almost all of them are from community colleges. The universities are really doing very systematic things to recruit you guys, to reach out and to get you guys. Swarthmore is a few things that were kind of off the top of my head. Swarthmore is a private liberal arts college that's more challenging to get to. They send me emails to suggest them to our more qualified students, which I then send out to our faculty, because our faculty know our best qualified students the best, and whenever I can, I try to get things sent to your Prairie State emails, so definitely check those out when you get those sort of things. But Swarthmore is one example of a school that if you are successfully admitted, they make a no loan promise. So they're promising that if you meet certain criteria, you do not have to take out loans to finish your degree there. I actually have information in the back, data of about 60 schools. Quite a few of them do no loan promises. And the others, they may not do no loan promises, but they're usually highly competitive schools that students are interested in that kind of data. These highly competitive schools tend to give bigger scholarships where you come out, like their sticker price is higher, like University of Chicago, and I went to Northwestern University for my master's degree. Like the sticker price is higher, but they tend to be more generous with scholarships if you know what to look for. I wasn't smart about it. I really didn't do a good job searching for scholarships. So I've dedicated a career to helping others do better than I did. I did okay with education. I just didn't do a good job of getting that cost down. But I'm good at that stuff now, and I'll help you. So dedicated scholarships. So there's also a handout in the back where there's some big full scholarships. And that's from a variety of schools. So GSU, a local school, we have the dual degree program. If you have a 2.0 GPA and you're full-time and you have any chance you might go to GSU after Prairie State, you should sign up for DDP. You just meet with their transfer specialist on our campus once a semester. They actually will lock in your future GSU tuition rate for this year's rate if you join this year. But then if you're not actually transferring for another year or two, you're skipping any tuition increases they do between now and when you start. The average student saves about $2,000 in their future GSU tuition by joining the program. And the part that I extra like, if you're in the dual degree program and you're an honors student, you take at least 3 honors classes while you're here and have at least a 3.5 GPA. And Professor Koch in the back is our honors program coordinator. Or you have that 3.5 and you join the Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society that Amina mentioned as well. When you're in DDP, your last semester, you're graduating, you can compete for full tuition scholarships. If you're on Pell Grant and you have a 2.75 GPA and you're in the DDP, you can also compete for full tuition scholarships. In the last 9 years, so DDP was created 9 years ago. Prairie State was one of the founding members with GSU to create it. In the last 9 years, we've had more than 50 Prairie State students get full rides at GSU through this program. You do need to sign up before you've earned 45 credits. So that's just a great thing to check into. While I'm thinking about it, Professor Koch, and kind of to build on something that Amina didn't specifically cite, but if you want to go to these highly competitive schools, graduate programs, or get lots of money in scholarships, you need to be an amazing writer. You need to be able to show someone. You had a neat, when we were talking ahead of time, you had a neat way of saying it. I can't remember what it was. Well, you said decorate yourself. Yeah. You did say that today. You also need to express that in writing. So you need to do amazing things and be really good at communicating that on applications and in essays. And when we were preparing for this, Amina actually specifically mentioned Professor Koch as being very helpful. I hope that's okay for me. You said it was okay, so I don't put people on the spot. I just want to give you guys a heads up. If you need another humanities credit, there's an African American lit class she's teaching that starts next week, but you need to register tomorrow for it. So heads up on that. The mask. I love how you talked about the mask. Don't pretend you know things. I still have to catch myself in regular life. I'm always learning new things. I learned things about home and car insurance I didn't know about by not pretending I knew about it in the last year, which hopefully will save me money in the future. Pretending to have that mask cost me a little bit, in the past. So the mask, you guys are here. So don't pretend that you know things. When you come in to talk to people, we'll start rattling things off sometimes because we're excited. Okay, I do that. Sometimes I jump ahead, or I might use a jargon that you don't know, and I don't expect you to know it, but I might not realize I'm doing it. So stop me, let me know, but definitely come in. There's some research I saw in the last year that men are doing a much better job than women are seeking out supportive resources in college, because women we want to give the perception we already know it. And I have to say that's reflected. I see a lot more men in my office asking for guidance than I do women. I'm like, well, that's got to change. So that was such a good point that you made there. I did have a question for you with the University of Chicago award you got. Was that specifically, did you apply for it, or was it part of the standard application process?
It was part of the standard. Well, I had to select whether I'd like to be considered for awards when I applied. And so when I received the acceptance letter, they said, and on top of that, we are awarding you this amount. So it was part of the package.
That's awesome. And some schools work that way, and a lot of schools don't. You need to be doing extra applications in addition to the standard admissions applications. Scholarship applications frequently, especially the big ones, usually have larger or earlier deadlines. Like it could be as early as December to be using for the next August. So there's some kind of bigger scholarships. I have some information there with links, so you can look up those things, see if you're eligible, see if the school's a fit for your interests. And now is the time, if you're a sophomore, to be looking at those right now so that you can be using them next year. And then the other thing, I appreciate that you put in your church's scholarship, because the big scholarships are wonderful and you want to go for them, but they're not the norm. The most common scholarship awards are more around $1,000 to $2,000. So another mentality, another method to be successful is to go for as many of those as you can. There are people that do that. They've made looking for scholarships like a half-time job, and they just get enough of them that they collect, and then they make school free through a variety of those. So it's having multiple options you go for. And I really loved when you talked about the imposter syndrome. I totally remember the day before I started my orientation at Northwestern, I was like, oh crap, what am I doing? Will I even be able to talk to my classmates? Because although, I fit the outside look of a predominantly white institution, I did not grow up with privilege or a high income. And I had classmates that many of my classmates had also graduated from a public university like I did. So only one had actually graduated from Northwestern as an undergrad, because that is something I want to mention. Sometimes people think you have to go to the school for undergrad to get into it for grad school later, for your master's or doctorate. It's actually rather uncommon to be at the same school for both, and it does not usually give you an edge. So if that's a concern you have a lot more options open to you.
I wanted to make a point about scholarships as well too, is that sometimes our employers offer scholarships as well, or our parents' employers. Like I know my husband's, he's a union employee, and his job offers a wide variety of scholarships that we are going to be applying for our children.
Yeah, and scholarships, I'm actually working to put together, you guys could just note it down if you want, or just remember, it's not in anything printed yet, but on November 21st at 2 o'clock, I'm working with our Writing Center and our foundation, and we're going to give a dedicated session on seeking out and applying for scholarships. Because our Writing Center does help with both scholarship and admissions application essays. And they know I tell people to go there. They're used to it. I've been doing it for years. And our foundation, they're there to talk about it. Our foundation is here if you are having difficulty paying for classes here at Prairie State, if grants aren't covering everything, or you're self-paying, or you're taking out loans for school, you should check in to the foundation. So you can hear both options while you are here, but then you also can get insight from people that are in that position of giving scholarships, because every university has foundations and scholarship options. Public universities tend to do nothing automatic. You almost always have to apply for scholarships, seek them out, and find them on your own. Private universities typically do them automatically, so just kind of some generics. Do you guys have questions for me, or do you have more things? You want?
Question. I couldn't really see for email.
Yeah, sorry, I had a technical difficulty there, didn't I? Oh, now it's like, okay. So.
It was the last page, but there it is.
Yeah, it's weird because it won't show me on the screen now. I'm trying, I would have to close it and get back in. Let's do that. The weird thing is it's showing me a blank screen. You guys are seeing that, but it's just showing me a blank screen, and here we go. There. And then, let's see, so I have more information in the back. I know I mentioned some of them already. I noticed a lot of you already signed in. So if you didn't get a chance to, if you can just kind of sign the sign-in sheet before you go, it helps us keep track of how many people show so that I can keep doing this sort of thing. So get the information out there. So we have data about colleges. The handouts are it's in the back. Thanks. Data about colleges that are more competitive to get into, and if they do full funding. So really good info there. I do have information on other transfer planning events that I have coming up. We have something on September 25th, the Transfer Fair. It's all private Illinois universities. We typically have 25 come. Eureka College is one that I want to highlight. They're a school with a very unique, unusual program that if you have your associate's degree, you have at least a 2.8 GPA, and you have financial need defined when you do your FAFSA. If your family's EFC, expected family contribution, is $1,000 or less, then you can qualify for a free 2-year tuition program with them. They will be at the fair in 2 weeks. I really highly recommend checking that out. And there's information about their program in the handouts too. I think I have information about PTK as well, Phi Theta Kappa, the Honor Society that Amina was part of here, and that I suggest to any student that wants to go on to more competitive, challenging things. It really helps build that community and getting around like-minded folks, like-minded people you mentioned. You can really build each other and be even better when you have other people helping you with that. So I did have a thank you for Amina. Wanted to thank her for coming out here and volunteering her time. So I have a Prairie State Alumni t-shirt.
Oh, thank you.
And a little swag bag, a PSC thing.
Nice.
So
I love swag.
lots of little goodies.
Cool. Thank you so much.
So information's in the back, and we'll be around if you guys have any other questions. Any questions now? Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you.